We sent Stephanie Rule to L.A.
Center Court Staples Center, it's all me.
so she could give Kobe Bryant the business.
Oh, man.
Stephanie goes one-on-one with the NBA's senior superstar, talking new shoes, old friends, and next steps.
Do you think the NBA should truly go global?
Absolutely.
Plus, is anybody really in charge of college sports? And why does more money seem to bring more problems?
Some individuals assess what the possible consequences are and decide it's worth the risk to break the rules.
We're your one-stop shop for sports business news. Sportfolio starts right now. Hello, I'm Rick Haro, and welcome to Sportfolio, Bloomberg's weekly inside look at the business of sports. Much of our show this week focuses on college sports. Money grabs and power struggles are reshaping the business model. I'll sit down with two insiders to discuss the upside and the downside of all this growth and change. But first, let's examine the business of being Kobe Bryant. On December 20th, the latest version of his Nike shoes hits the stores. And while he shows few signs of slowing down, it's time to start asking, what's Kobe going to do when he's done playing? We sent Stephanie Rule to L.A. to find out.
When I sat down with Kobe Bryant at the launch of his newest Nike shoe, I learned how seriously he takes the sneaker business.
Nike's filled with ultra-competitive people. You know, we're all essentially cut from the same cloth, so we speak the same language. You know, so you have designers and tech engineers and so forth and so on who are as passionate about what they do in their respective fields as I am in mine. So, you know, when you kind of have that bond, it makes it very easy.
And I learned how he feels about following Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan into NBA ownership.
I don't know if ownership is really the right thing for me, or I'd go crazy. If
Why?
A player, well, I mean, if a player misses a game because he has a broken fingernail, I'd lose my mind. I wouldn't be able to take it.
So at age 34, with the end of his playing days in sight, I tried to draw Kobe out on the subject of his next career move. Your current coach was just complimenting how intense you are. How could you truly walk away from the game come retirement? Wouldn't you want to keep a foot in, keep a sneaker in?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be around the game, and you know, hopefully my brand can live on past my career, and I can do a lot to be a part of the game in that sense and inspire another generation, whether it's through advertising or grassroots marketing or whatever it may be.
He'll stay around the game, but as a brand, not necessarily as an executive. He's had his share of headaches and responsibilities as captain of the Lakers team that has struggled early this season. When a team makes decisions like a new coach, is it tough for you to not be part of management because you are a player, or do you feel like you get to be part of that decision-making process in some way?
It's always a little dicey, especially when you're talking about players that may be traded and so forth, because you're in the locker room with them every day. So it's a little weird to feel like you're putting on a managerial hat at the same time you're friends with them and you're teammates with them when they might be gone. So it's a fine line. Management does their job and they do what they do, and if they have any questions, they can call me, and I just give them my opinions. But in terms of what's going to happen, I don't need to know.
Kobe gave his opinion on Phil Jackson when the Lakers coaching job became available, calling him, quote, the greatest coach of all time in any profession. The team hired Mike D'Antoni instead, but he took it in stride.
Phil is, we've had a great relationship, and we continue to have a great relationship. He's more like my mentor than anything, because I've learned so much from him. He gives me plenty of books to read.
What kind of books?
And very strange ones.
Like what?
You know, he's a very zen guy, and he's into a lot of books that I've kind of looked at the title and said, am I going to have anything in common with this book? And I start reading it, and it turns out to be something that's very good and I enjoy very much. But we have a great relationship. I'm disappointed that he's not part of the organization, but I'm very happy with D'Antoni.
Should fans have confidence in the Lakers management right now? You seem to.
Yeah, I do. You know, it's a process. I mean, we've been through so many ups and downs. I'm very pleased with where we are in terms of the improvements that we're making. Our record isn't very good right now, but I believe that will change.
Spoken like a man who's been studying Zen. Kobe's already reacting to adversity like a CEO, focusing on long-term results, much like another of his mentors named Phil, a business visionary whom he will someday join in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Do you think Nike chairman Phil Knight should be in the Basketball Hall of Fame? He's never played the game. He's never coached.
For sure. And here's the reason why I say that. Because growing up, when I watched all the Jordan commercials.
Tell me I can no longer fly.
The Charles Barkley commercials.
I am not a role model.
As a kid, I didn't differentiate between a Nike commercial and an NBA commercial. I didn't understand that there was a difference. To me, it was all one and the same. It was the NBA. This is the game. So what he did for the game of basketball was elevate it globally, for a kid that was growing up in Italy and, not really watching basketball in that type of sense. He elevated the game because of what he was able to do from a marketing perspective for Jordan and Barkley and those guys.
Bryant has teamed with Nike to expand the NBA's footprint even further. China is the second biggest market as far as basketball, apparel, Nike shoes, sneakers. You were one of the first to truly embrace China. Why?
Well, it was more of a strategic call for us. It was, at the time we were kind of going through a little bit of controversy, and we had to make a decision on how we were going to attack things from a brand perspective. And I had been to China for so many years and done so many camps and clinics over there. And, we heard the chatter about it being an emerging market, and it just so happened that I had so many relationships there. So we kind of wanted to flip the paradigm a little bit and kind of initiate everything in China. And then, hopefully if we're fortunate, if we do a good enough job, we'll kind of grow it to the United States. But we wanted to start everything in China.
After Kobe Bryant has made his last jump shot, I suspect he'll jump right into a new role. He won't be just a global brand ambassador. With his credentials, he could be more like basketball's Secretary of State. You have been a leader in the globalization of basketball. David Stern has given you credit for it. Do you think the NBA should truly go global?
Absolutely. I might be a little biased. I just think the game is such a beautiful game, and the more that people play it, the more people see it and enjoy it, the better. I love it so much. I would love it to see it become even more global.
If you had to call yourself a businessman, a basketball player, or a brand, what would it be?
I'd say a brand, because you can kind of wrap them all into that. Like I said, I've been very fortunate to be surrounded with great people who help me come up with great product and, help me make right decisions, and here I am.
Stephanie now joins us to talk about Kobe Bryant. That was an incredible piece, great get. But the most important thing, I think, is your perspective and perception about Kobe the businessman. What do you think?
I mean, he is a true businessman. He's been playing for the Lakers for 17 years. He is part of that brand. As I said, when he was defining himself, a business, a brand, a player, he says, I am a brand. When it comes to the international markets, remember, Kobe Bryant, who originally lived in Italy, was in the Chinese markets before anybody else was. He spent 9 years there really cultivating that fan base. He's a true businessman.
Stephanie Rule snags the Kobe Zoom 8. Obviously, she parks her high heels at the door for the Kobe Zoom 8. How'd you get those? What do you think of those?
They're hot. I mean, when you think about basketball sneakers, you think high tops, they cover your ankles, they don't look so great. These things are like cross trainers, and part of the reason is because he runs 4.5 miles per game, so they're more like a running shoe. I'm going to the Nets-Knicks game tonight. Won't be Lakers, but I assure you, I'm wearing my Kobe 8s.
Well, and you always leverage that into something else. I guarantee you, you are the best in the world for Bloomberg and also the best in procuring swag. Thank you, Stephanie Rule.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Kobe Bryant skipped college to go straight to the NBA, but he's done all right for himself. Meanwhile, college sports revenue is exploding, but the structure of the business may be imploding. Coming up, we discuss the future of the NCAA with two distinguished administrators, what needs scrapping and what's worth saving. Stay with us on Sportfolio. Welcome back to Sportfolio. 2012 has been a year of tremendous change in college athletics. Conference memberships continue to shift. Television contracts continue to grow. The BCS football championship on its way out to be replaced by a lucrative playoff system, and predictably, the battles are heating up over who runs the show and who gets the cash. How did we get here, and where's this thing going? I'm joined by Joe Quinlan, Athletic Director at St. Peter's University, formerly Athletic Director at Seton Hall University, and Robin Harris, Executive Director of the Ivy League Council of Presidents, the Commissioner of the Ivy League. So, Joe, I want to start with you. The basic issue of revenue redistribution. We all understand there's a lot of money coming in, but is it going where it needs to go? The have and have-not issue, speak to us about that.
I think the have and have-not issue is going to be a debate or a battle that will never be solved quickly. But I also believe that there are a number of conferences and commissioners who understand what the mission is and what people are working toward with educating young people and providing them with an opportunity to participate in intercollegiate athletics. And money's an issue. Finances are a big part of this. And so there are going to be more discussions about this, I think, leading forward, especially with the way that the realignment keeps happening on a day-to-day basis.
Well, the whole conference musical chairs, we got to speak quick, because by the end of the interview, we may have another school jumping ship. We'll talk in a second about perspective, but follow up with you on the pot. What's the playoff payoff down the road look like? What do the pot look like? How's it going to be distributed? Give me your crystal ball assessment.
I think that people are going to look to maintain the football money within the football group, and then however the rest of the revenue comes out of the NCAA and in particular the men's basketball championship, which is the sizable revenue source. That's where the chancellors and the presidents really are going to be instrumental in how they determine those funds are going to be divided up, and how much is going to either come out of the football pool or it's all going to stay in the football pool, and they're going to play a large role in that. The commissioners obviously will play a role in that. I don't mean to speak for Robin, but I believe that they will, because their membership will require them to do so.
Well, luckily you don't have to speak for Robin, because we're going to talk about that issue right now. The divisions versus the individual other sports. How's it going to be divided? What's going to happen? But more immediately, there's a lot of discussion now anyway about breaking up Division I, super tier, super conferences, revenue tiers on different perspective planes. Good idea, bad idea? Would that happen? Should that happen?
Well, it's an interesting question, and it's one that I think even my position is starting to shift a little bit. I don't think a wholesale division and breakup is in the cards at all. It just doesn't make sense for the schools that might want to do so, because they're still going to need an infrastructure that governs the rules. They're still going to need rules. They're still going to need championships. Even if it's 60 to 70 schools, they're going to need an organization that's like the NCAA. Can they duplicate that? Sure. Does that make sense? I don't think it does.
Don't want to be cynical, but anybody can write the rules. Your real issue, how are you going to distribute the dough? I mean, how do you distribute the dollars? That's huge. That's a very important issue. And from a basketball perspective, you worked at the Big East for a long time, and so the basketball schools that are leveraged around basketball, do they need to break off and form basketball super conferences? Can they accomplish some of their goals within the current structure?
Well, I think that part of what's being reported nearly daily now is that there is a discussion about that. I think one of the primary components that's been overlooked is the basketball schools, at least within the Big East, have always met on a regular basis just to outline what they're looking to do, how does everybody fit in, and the football schools did the same. And then when you would meet as a larger group, as Robin said, I think people believe that there was more to be gained from being a group together than rather than being two groups apart.
Here's an interesting perspective. President Emmert recently, here's his quote: "If BCS schools or any other schools decide they'd be better served by having their own association, they can or should do that." Robin, Mark Emmert's been very active in speaking about reform and having the NCAA do it. Is he throwing in the towel? Is he feeling frustrated? Is he daring people? What's that all about?
I personally would find it disappointing if that happens, but I can understand what he's saying, because in some ways I feel that way too. If you really want to run your own organization, go ahead and do it, and the rest of us will still operate and we'll be okay. I think that would be a shame, because I think at the end of the day, even the schools that are bringing in the millions of dollars are still part of a university, and athletics is still an extracurricular aspect of the university that is similar to the arts and the music departments. It just happens to be bringing in a lot more revenue that can be used for a lot of good on campuses. And I think schools are getting a little focused on the revenue, and maybe we need to come back to the educational values that bring us together. So hopefully sanity will prevail.
There's an interesting perspective. Schools are focusing a little more on the revenue. Well, welcome to the new millennium, ladies and gentlemen. But, Joe, from your perspective, President Emmert's comments, what's your thought?
I think that for more than 100 years, the NCAA has functioned, as Robin outlined some of the things, to provide services, statistics, championship, membership services, clearly enforcement. And I also think that the commissioners, who the president may be identifying them in a more subtle manner, are pretty smart, and they understand what's required because any number of those commissioners are former NCAA staff members to begin with.
Interesting Mark Emmert perspective. Some people said that he overstepped his bounds on Penn State. Don't want to get into that. Some people talked about Ohio State, and there's a lot of issues. You still got the University of Miami issue to deal with now. Are some administrators tired of playing by NCAA rules right now? Do they understand what the function is and, predict where that's going in the future?
I've served on the NCAA Enforcement Working Group, which was charged with strengthening the enforcement program. And I think that the membership as a whole, we surveyed the membership, and they want to see a stronger enforcement program. So I don't think people are tired of abiding by NCAA rules. They just want to make sure that the consequences are such that it actually deters the really bad behavior. And the sense that we have had is that maybe some individuals assess what the possible consequences are and decide it's worth the risk to break the rules. And so we're trying to change that with really strong penalties that I think are going to catch people's attention when they start getting assessed.
We're going to take time out from this discussion for a couple of minutes. We've got a lot left to talk about. Shared governance, is it a dead issue in college athletics now that the stakes are so high? One highly respected critic thinks it is. But here's our Sportfolio stumper. What was the last school without a football team to win the NCAA Division I basketball title? Answer when we return on Sportfolio. Here's the answer to our stumper. The last school without football to win the NCAA Division I basketball championship? Villanova in 1985. The Wildcats dropped football in 81 and didn't resume the program until the fall of 85. Welcome back to Sportfolio. I'm Rick Horrow, discussing the business of college sports with St. Peter's Athletic Director Joe Quinlan and Ivy League Commissioner Robin Harris. Robin, the Ivy League now has its first national television deal, NBC Sports Network. You've got 11 games. How important was that for the business?
I think it's really important because it allows us to feature the Ivy League model, and the fact that we can compete at the Division I level. We are competitive athletically, and obviously we also have students that perform in the classroom as well as on the playing field. So to have a national package that combines men's basketball with football really was a huge step forward for us.
By the way, I will add the commissioner of, I'll say it, you don't have to, the most stable conference maybe in the history of college sports, certainly today. And talking about stability, the Metro Athletic Conference, Joe, it's in many ways the way it ought to be. It's tightly knit. It's geographically contained in the Northeast. It's 10 schools, no conference musical chairs here. Is it really kind of the way college sports ought to be?
There's a little bit of trickle down with us, and that generally, though, I think you're right. We have very like-minded institutions, very mission-oriented institutions, institutions who really look at athletics as part of the university mission. And while we have had a little bit of disruption, Loyola will be leaving to join the Patriot League in the summer, I think by and large most of the institutions in our league have been in for the long run, and there's a great commitment to some stability there.
But conference musical chairs light.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, comparatively, you're absolutely right.
Let's talk about a serious issue relative to governance. When Maryland left the ACC to go to the Big Ten, former basketball star Tom McMillan, very well known, he now sits on the university's Board of Regents. He was asked to vote quickly on the issue, and he wrote a op-ed piece. He said, and I'm quoting, what happened at Maryland was governance under secrecy and exclusion. Conference commissioners can dictate terms to universities that effectively hijack the possibility of debate. Pretty incendiary words, Robin. What about it?
Yeah, I mean, that's surprising for a trustee member to come out publicly, and obviously he knows more about the process that occurred than I do. But these things happen so quickly because they're so public, and I do have a concern about how quickly the movement seems to be happening, and I wonder whether all the decisions are thoughtfully handled, both on the part of the receiving conference as well as the school that's leaving. And it'll be interesting to see 10 years from now if we have the schools in the same place as they are now, or if there's some sort of buyer's or seller's remorse at some point in time in the future when fits aren't quite what people thought they were.
Well, in that situation, the Maryland trustees, they felt they had to accept the Big Ten's confidentiality terms, even if it went against their own process. That seems like a huge deal in and of itself as a lawyer, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that certainly the university governance and their council must have had a look at it and make sure everything was okay.
But now we're in a bigger, first, the media, obviously a lot more prolific. Public universities look like public companies, stockholder issues, Joe, and also, President Spanier facing charges at Penn State for issues about what a board should hear and what it shouldn't hear, although that is a little bit different, obviously. Where does this whole issue go, and how do you effectively, as a governance business issue, draw the line about what you share with your board of directors, your trustees, your board, and what you don't?
Well, I think that it's important. I think you see much more prevalent these days is a degree of transparency that people are striving to achieve. Our president and our senior leadership at the university does a lot with our board. I'll go back this afternoon for a meeting with our board committee on athletics. We do a lot with them, and having said that, I also believe that the president really has had to make and has made some firm decisions about what we're going to do with athletics, and advised our board very appropriately as to the course of action. But I think that you find nowadays, especially in the big public-private land-grant institutions, there really is a clamor for more transparency about what's taking place, not just within athletics, but within university as a whole.
Well, so put that in perspective, and here's the conundrum. If the trustees and the regents can basically be taken out of a lot of the facts relating to the decision, and the NCAA has limited enforcement powers, Robin, who's in charge?
That is the question, isn't it? And I think what happens is you have the commissioners working probably with the university president and other senior leadership, and at some point choosing to bring in the board. But the issue happens when you bring in the board, you're bringing in a lot of individuals, and the opportunity for word to get out increases drastically. And so I think that's why these things happen quietly for a while.
Joe, Robin, thank you very much. Provocative conversation. Thanks, as always, for joining us on Sportfolio. We'll have you back.
Thanks.
Thank you. Get Sportfolio wherever you go on the Bloomberg TV Plus app for iPad. Next week on the program, some of our best interviews of 2012. Cy Young Award winner R.A. Dickey, Penn State Athletic Director Dave Joyner, and Rio 2016 golf course architect Gil Hance. If you missed these the first time, you're in for a treat. Catch Sportfolio Wednesday at 9:30. That'll do it for Sportfolio. Our thanks to Stephanie Rule and Kobe Bryant, and to Joe Quinlan and Robin Harris for joining us this week. And thank you for watching. Remember to visit Bloomberg.com for more Sportfolio video and past episodes. I'm Rick Horrow. See you next time.